So, a very good afternoon to everyone present here. I am Vedpriya Lahiri, Assistant Professor, DME Law School, and I welcome you all on this webinar on legal education and legal profession being organized by DME Law School. Today, we are honored to have with us Honorable Dr. Justice Arijit Pasayat, sir, former Judge, Supreme Court of India, as the chief guest of this event. We welcome you, sir. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to Honorable Mr. Justice Bhavar Singh, sir, Director General, Delhi Metropolitan Education, Noida, and former Judge, Allahabad High Court, to today's event. Thank you, sir, for your presence and for your blessings for this event. I welcome Professor Dr. Ravikant Swami, Director DME, Professor Dr. N.K. Behel, Dean DME Law School, and Professor Dr. Bhavesh Gupta, Head Academics, DME Law School, and all the participants to this event. I'm sure that today's event will help everyone present here in enriching their experience and gaining valuable knowledge on this theme. So with this, I request Director DME, Professor Dr. Ravikant Swami, to welcome our chief guest. Please, sir.
It's a great occasion today that we have with us the great Justice Arijit Pasayat for our law students. Sir, we have organized this event so that we can listen from the horse's mouth, as we say, about legal education and legal profession. The participants of this program primarily include the students who have applied for CLAT in 2020 and those who wish to join law courses now, means they may be joining law courses after 15 days or after 1 month or so. The audience also includes teachers and students from DME and other law colleges. I welcome you, sir, on the program. I also welcome our Director General, sir, our Dean, sir, and Head Law School in this program. Coming to the introduction of Justice Arijit Pasayat, audience, I can tell you that whenever we think about any judge, then the first thought which comes to our mind is regarding some criminal procedures like, say, life imprisonment or death penalty. But Justice Pasayat had a different field of operation. Sir is a person from the accounting background, and therefore sir's field of practice as an advocate at Odisha was taxation and commercial cases. So that way, sir is a little different kind of judge, although as a judge, all kinds of cases are to be dealt. Sir has held, before being elevated to the Supreme Court, sir held two important positions. One was the Chief Justice of Kerala High Court, and second was the Chief Justice of Delhi High Court. Then sir came to the Supreme Court of India in 2001 and served the Honorable Court till 2009 for 8 long years. Talking about sir's notable decisions, well, audience, you know that or this other backward castes, they form about 50% population of our country. So there was a question whether OBC should be given some reservation in institutions of higher learning like NLUs, like IITs, like IIMs or not. So there was a constitutional bench to hear this, and the Honorable Court decided that yes, reservation should be given to other backward castes in institutions of higher learning like NLUs, IITs and IIMs, and Justice Pasayat was part of that constitutional bench. That's all about Justice Pasayat. I would also like to welcome our Director General, Justice Bhavar Singh, in this program. Justice Bhavar Singh has served the Allahabad High Court for 8 years, and sir has also been the Secretary General of Supreme Court of India. The Dean of Law School, Dr. N.K. Behel, was a District and Sessions Judge with the UP government, and our Head of Law School, Dr. Bhavesh. I welcome you. Before I hand it over to Vedpriya again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So without further ado, I would request our chief guest, Honorable Justice Arijit Pasayat, sir, to enlighten us on today's theme. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. I hope all of you are fine and safe during these tiring times. And I see the smiling face of all of you. So I think you are all happy and safe. God bless you. And today we have just crossed the Vijaya Dashami Day, the victory of good over evil. Let it be always there. And that is the very fundamental of law. Now, when I was invited to speak to the students and the teachers of law, and I was asked to choose a subject. I said, what better subject can there be than legal education and legal profession? They readily agreed, and therefore I am before you today to speak on this subject, which is so dear to me. It has to be remembered that as lawyers, judges, students, and teachers of law, we are all partners in a great adventure. That is the adventure of administering justice. Lawyers and judges are really trustees for the litigants who come to the courts either for vindication of their constitutional rights, private rights, or civil rights. And therefore, the task has to be approached with deep consciousness of the fact and with a sense of responsibility. The profession of law is a very noble profession. Unfortunately, throughout the ages, lawyers and judges have been figures of satire and caricature at the hands of various authors right from ancient days. In the Roman times, the poet Martial described lawyers as men who hire out their words and anger. Coming to the Middle Ages, Chaucer in his prologue to the Canterbury Tales poked sly fun at the man of laws. Then we come to the most quoted description of lawyers by Dean Swift in his Gulliver's Travels, in which lawyers are described as a society of men among us, bred up from the youth in the art of proving by words multiplied for that purpose that white is black and black is white, according as they are paid. An American humorist, H.L. Mencken, described a judge as a law student who sits and marks his own examination papers, and I suppose gives himself first class. Today, the task of judges, lawyers, law students, and teachers has become very different from what it was in earlier days, because then the emphasis was on private rights. Today, in the changed society, the emphasis is on constitutional rights, on public rights, on rights which have been conferred upon the weaker and disadvantaged sections of the society. What was taught to me during my college days has become today almost obsolete so far as the practice of law is concerned. Law has to keep pace and has kept pace throughout the ages with changing needs of the society. And it is therefore useful both for a lawyer who presents the client's case as also for a judge who decides that case to know how legal concepts have grown, how they have been shaped, how they have been changed, and how old concepts have given place to new ones. This important aspect has to be kept in view by those who study law and those who teach them. Speaking on the topic reminds me, as I was told that there will be many who would like to take law as a subject for higher education and those who are joining. I'm referring to what a great American judge of the Supreme Court of the United States, one of the most illustrious judges, Mr. Justice Felix Frankfurter, has stated. A young schoolboy named Paul Clausen, about 12 years old, living in the city of Alexandria, opposite to Washington, D.C., where the Supreme Court of the United States is situated on the other bank of the river Potomac, wrote to Justice Frankfurter that he had a great desire to go in for law and sought for his advice how he would prepare and equip himself for the study of law. Now I will read out the whole letter what Justice Frankfurter had written, and I hope this will be the beacon light for all of you who want to study law. The letter reads, "My dear Paul, no one can be truly competent lawyer unless he is a truly cultivated man. If I were you, I would forget all about any technical preparation for the law. The best way to prepare for the law is to come to the study of law as a well-read person. Thus alone, one can acquire the capacity to use the English language on paper and in speech, and with the habits of clear thinking, which only a truly liberal education can give. No less important for a lawyer is the cultivation of the imaginative faculties by reading poetry, seeing great paintings in the original or in easily available reproductions, and listening to great music. Don't listen to this hippie type of music, good music, I mean. That is what Justice Frankfurter had meant. Stock your mind with a deposit of much good reading and widen and deepen your feelings by experiencing vicariously as much as possible the wonderful mysteries of the universe and forget all about your future career." This is what Justice Frankfurter had said. I think nobody can put it better than what advice he had given to people, students who want to take law as a profession and to go further. You see, students of law today are tomorrow's lawyers or judges or judicial officers. Keep this in mind while you study law in your colleges. Justice Frankfurter wrote this letter more than 200 years back. Today, even something more necessary for making a competent lawyer or a competent judge. That is the knowledge of business, commerce, and something of economics, of socio-economic problems, of political philosophies. You must have the knowledge of bookkeeping and accounts. You must be acquainted with the various activities of life, which someday or the other would come to a court of law. Because today, legislation regulates almost every branch and activity of life. And where there is legislation, there must generally be litigation. There can be no excellence in law without excellence in lawyers. Chief Justice Warren Burger of the United States expressed his belief that about one-half of America's practicing lawyers are not adequately qualified to represent their clients. And he added that incompetence of lawyers is one of the major reasons for delays in courts. The Chief Justice further stated that some United States lawyers do not even know how to ask a question in law. Others object to everything, he said, giving example of a lawyer who exclaimed, "That is a leading question," when a witness was asked, "Is your name Mr. Goldman?" Well, we have judges and retired judicial officers here. Mr. Justice Vanwar Singh, whom I happen to know very closely. One of the reasons, and what Justice Warren Burger had said about United States lawyers is probably more applicable to Indian lawyers. One of the reasons for the incompetence of so many lawyers is the incredible and ever-increasing complexity of law. The legal profession requires a capacity for hard work far above the ordinary. When an anxious mother asked Lord Thurlow whether he would advise her son to take up law as a profession, the Lord Chancellor's reply was, "Madam, can your son work like a horse and live like a hermit?" Lord Reading made the memorable quip that when he joined the bar, he thought that it would be a bed of roses. He soon discovered that it was either all roses and no bed, or all bed and no roses. Certain ideals and values which open up a larger meaning to human existence, will always be beyond the pale of law. And that is why a lawyer has to be well versed in other subjects if he desires to aim at excellence. The law the lawyers know about is property and land, but why the leaves are on the trees, and why the waves disturb the seas, why honey is the food of bees, why horses have such tender knees, why winters comes when the rivers freeze, why faith is more than what one sees, and hope survives the worst disease, and charity is more than these they do not understand. It's a matter of great concern that legal education has not received the attention it deserves. The Law Commission of Reforms of Judicial Administration had noted that there is a mushroom growth of law colleges. With very hard-hitting words, a critic had said that the lawyers coming out from the law colleges are half-baked lawyers left loose upon society as drones and parasites. Today, unfortunately, there is a big gap between what lawyers are expected to do in certain areas and what actually is done. The basic difference can be treated to inadequate legal education and entry of unqualified, ill-equipped lawyers into profession. My advice to the students is this: your duties to society are many. You are the present and future intellectual torch bearers of the society. People are bound to look up to you for leadership, guidance, advice, and assistance. Do not hesitate to offer your service to society whenever it is possible to do so. Do not think you have no time. A busy man finds time for everything. A lazy man cannot find time for anything. You have, however, to equip yourself for the great tasks which lie before you. You must study human life in all its aspects. You should enlarge your mental outlook. You should exert yourself to redeem the society from its difficulties. You should attend to its economic and social welfare. You must have the first faith in yourself. Do not feel frustrated if you do not get early success. Depend on your inner capacity and your moral fibers. Do not allow adversity and temporary obstacles to kill your enthusiasm. And the study of law can be incomplete without enthusiasm and pure desire to do something. Success comes to those who dare and act. You have great opportunities. Please do not allow them to lapse. Before coming to the end of my address, I must tell you something, which of course has been said in a lighter vein. In a court of law, a senior lawyer was addressing the lawyer appearing for the other side as Mr. Necessity. When this went on for some time, the presiding judge reminded the lawyer that the name of the counsel was not Mr. Necessity, but was something else. The senior lawyer politely said, Your Honor, I know his name, but I am only repeating the saying that necessity knows no law and reminding him that he does not know law. I am very sure students of your institution, or for that any matter, any law college, will not have the rare privilege of being addressed as Mr. Necessity. Those who have participated and are going to join the college need not feel disheartened even if they don't win prizes or laurels. In courts also, lawyers, however eminent, they do not win all cases in which they appear. It is only that they carry out their professional duties ably and efficiently. That is what is important. You must give your best. The same comes from dedication, sincerity, and hard work. One more thing which I feel is important for you to remember. Too much of dependence on technological aids and like internets may save you time for you, but would not sharpen your mind. Use the greatest computer on earth that God has created, that is human mind, to innovate new ideas. I will conclude by saying what innovation is. All of you know there was a gentleman, Edmund Hillary, who had climbed the Everest. He was one of the successful ones who had climbed the Everest. He did it on his third attempt. When he failed in his second attempt, he looked back at the Everest and said, "Look, you are a mountain. You cannot grow. I am a human being. I can innovate. I will come back, innovate, and conquer you." Lo behold, he came and conquered the Everest next time. I hope all of you will have this deal, desire, and the enthusiasm for innovation, because innovation has no boundaries. It's boundless. Thank you. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity to be amidst you.
Thank you so much, sir, for this enlightening address. Sir, the participants do have some questions that they have been sending us. So,
Yeah,
if with your permission,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, please.
All right, sir. All right. Sir, since you speak of innovation, sir, now because of the pandemic, we have moved on to this online method of teaching, which has also been like used in the legal education. So, what's your opinion on that?
You see, now we have to accept that these technical things are going to stay. When, in fact, 1 year back, I wouldn't have the idea that I will be addressing to the students sitting in my home and addressing the students who are at different locations. Because you see, necessity has brought about changes, and we must adapt these changes. And if we do it correctly, I think there would be more of necessity for having these type of facilities, which would actually reduce even in terms of costs, because you don't have to travel. Because I was traveling very frequently for my professional work as this thing, but the time that I was spending traveling, now I am having more time at home and more time to quarrel with my wife.
All right, sir. Okay. So the next question is for the prospective students who are going to join law. So everybody thinks about a career in law. So what would be your guidance on that?
I think there is a link which has this thing snapped. Please, I cannot hear your voice.
Oh, all right, sir. Sir, can you hear me now, sir? Sir, am I
I
audible?
cannot hear your voice.
Um,
Now I can see you. Yeah.
All right, sir. All right. So, sir, am I audible now?
Yeah, please.
All right. Okay, sir. So the question is from the prospective students who are going to join this legal field. So what can you like? How can you guide them regarding the career one shall have or one can have after completing the law?
You see, after completing law, you have various avenues.
Yes.
One is to join the legal profession. The other is to opt for judicial services. The third is to take teaching as a career, teaching law as a career. So you decide, you are the best person to decide which of the avenues, that there are three avenues, or even if you join some offices as legal advisors or law officers, you are the best person to judge for which you are suited. You see, there cannot be any generalized guidelines because everybody's choice and aptitude may be different. I may be good at being a lawyer, but I may be a failure as a teacher of law. But I may be a brilliant teacher of law, but I may not. There are instances when very brilliant professors of law, they have not succeeded as lawyers. So it all depends upon what is your attitude, and you are the best person. You must know where you are most suited.
All right, sir. Sir, for students who are from science and commerce background, do you think they face an extra set of learning curves if they want to learn law, or are they at
No.
par with other
They are,
streams?
you see that today these 5 years law courses has done away with these streams of art, science, or commerce. You are, for the first 2 years, you are taught those subjects, uh, become LLB, BA LLB or BSc LLB. So that actually makes hardly any difference, because ultimately when you come to law, you come as freshers. You are like clay which is to be molded into good shapes in the able hands of your brilliant teachers of law, your guides.
Okay, sir. So now one more question from the students who are studying law, who are in the law school currently. Sir,
Yes.
so there one of the major questions that come up is regarding the judicial services. So the question is, so what is your recommendation in attempting judicial exams? Like one should go after it after some amount of practice, or should they sit for the exam straight away after being fresh from law school?
You see, earlier there was a requirement of a minimum period of practice before you enter the judicial services. The Supreme Court said, no, it's not necessary. You can straight go for it. But the question is, when you appear for the examination for a judicial officer, you must have some experience. Otherwise, what brilliant students who have joined as judicial officers at the first attempt, right from the college, they join the judicial officer. They are facing some practical difficulties because this practice of law is something different. You must have the feel of it initially. That's what my feeling is. Though there are many who have directly joined and become great judicial officers, they uh, actually do not have the feel of the courts. But therefore, before, if somebody wants to join the legal judicial office services, they must go periodically visit the law courts, practically the lower courts, not the higher courts, and see how the courts function. Because otherwise, what I told you about the lighter vein, Mr. Necessity. So that type of difficulty, the judge may be also described as Mr. Necessity by the lawyer alone, because the judge may also not law, and he may be called as the Mr. Necessity law judge.
All right, sir. So students who sometimes they start preparing like from the second year itself to sit for the judicial exams that they can appear after qualifying, like just graduating from law school, sir.
Yes.
So is there a golden period where they can start preparing for the same?
No, not that. You see,
All
there
right.
is no time for making a good beginning. It's almost like a T20 cricket match. The opening batsman can hit out, the middle order or the last two pairs can make scores.
Okay, all right, sir. And sir, there is a buzz that has been there for some time regarding this common All India Judicial Services. So, what is your opinion on that? Do you
You see,
would you prefer that?
this has actually practical difficulties, but the advantages and disadvantages both. Now, the difficulty of All India Judicial Services is like judges in the high courts who are getting transferred to other courts. Now, supposing a man from Kerala or from Madras comes to Allahabad or Delhi, he doesn't have good knowledge of Hindi. But there are courts where the lower court records the depositions, everything is recorded in Hindi. And the translations are horrible. I can tell you in the Supreme Court, I had an occasion to read one of them. The translation was, it was in the lower court. Of course, we have translators in the Supreme Court. Mr. Bhavan Singh can tell you he was the head of this administrative services there. The witness had said कि वो उसका माँ बहन का गाली देता था in some Hindi speaking area. The translation was he was paying compliments to his mother and sister. Nothing can be more diverse than somebody माँ बहन का गाली देता था and giving compliments to his mother and this thing. So that is a practical difficulty which would be there. Otherwise, you have to do judicial work wherever you go, whether you are posted. But will people like to go to the other states to take up judicial services is one factor which also ultimately the best of the people may not prefer to go out. They would prefer to practice or be judicial officers in their own state.
That is also there. Sir, so shouldn't there be some kind of training in case we are directly recruiting judges, like, do you think there should be a training in this to bridge these learning curves and gaps that you would just mention?
No, no,
Will
no.
can
You
that
see,
be overcome by that?
yeah, that can be certainly over. You see, there is nothing impossible, except that if you don't have the dedication to for the field of law. Uh, Otherwise, everything is possible for the study of law if you have the dedication, the desire to go for law as a profession, as a it's possible.
All right.
And one more thing which I have been telling, that as students of law and also the teachers of law, they have a duty to educate people about their legal rights. Don't ever think that the legal services authorities can do it. Justice Banwar Singh was in charge of it, I know. But the question is something else. Now, people in this country are not equipped, or they don't have the knowledge about their basic rights. I can tell you a very classic example. I was the chairman of the State Legal Services Authority in my state. So we had gone to a place which is notoriously infamous for the husband marrying more than once. So what they used to do, that is very close to the holy city of Puri in Orissa. They used to take their wives to the Puri on the pretext of taking them to the Lord Jagannath temple, and get an affidavit sworn there on the pretext of some certificate that they have a custom where the husband can marry more than once. Now, this actually created so much of a pandemonium because the ladies, they were so oppressed, but they didn't have this thing. So when I heard about it, I said, organize a legal aid camp where we will call the women folk alone and tell them that this sort of thing is not legally right. We told them in the first hour, post lunch, the district judge who was in charge of the legal aid, he came and told me, my lord, there is a big crowd waiting outside with lathis to assault your lordship. I said, why? Now he said, this judge is misleading our wives. There he's trying to break our happy homes. So you see, that is the type of illiteracy about their rights we have. So the law students and the teachers, I must tell them that they have a duty to go out, talk to people, organize legal aid camps, let the legal services authority of the state or the high court do it. But the law colleges must have that is a part of their duty to educate people about their rights, at least the basic rights, not the very complex rights that you have a right to live with dignity. Article 21 gives you all that sort of fundamental rights. But then the question would be, supposing somebody would say, I don't know how to get 2 kilos of rice for tomorrow, and what are you talking of my life with dignity? What does I have it in meaning? In one case, in fact, I had said in the Supreme Court that this is becoming illusory, that right to life with dignity. What dignity would you have if somebody asks you, sir, please give me how I will get 5 kilos of rice for this week, rather than telling me that I have a right to live with dignity. So this type of basic ideas have to be, at least from the students' days, they can develop this habit of teaching, educating people about their rights. And of course, in later times, it will pay them rich dividends.
That's true. All right. So we have a question from a PhD scholar who is participating in today's event. Sir, the question is regarding the inclusiveness of the term legal profession. Like usually whenever we say this term, we mean lawyers, or we are impliedly meaning lawyers. So the question is that, is there a need to expressly expand the scope of the meaning of both the terms? Or is there only a need to change our outlook in respect of the same?
You see, that I'll tell you, recently the National Educational Policy of 2020 has come.
Yes, sir.
And for the first time, there is a reference to legal education. Very, of course, not very elaborate terms, but at least there is a beginning that there is a recognition of the need for excellence in legal education. So, therefore, let's hope that it receives the attention it deserves, and not that, like olden times, people used to say, those who have nothing else to do, they go for homeopathy, okalati, and rajniti. Because,
Yes, sir.
but
So
now
we
the
hope
things
that
have
outlook
changed.
changes.
But things have now changed because the large number of students who are appearing for law to take as a profession shows that the outlook has changed, and rightly. And I feel proud that it has received the recognition that it deserved.
All right, sir. So, sir, as a legal professional, would you like to recommend all those who are listening any ideas that they need to follow in this path they choose?
Yeah, read that Justice Fanpatter's letter again.
All right,
That
sir.
gives you the.
All right. Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for answering our multiple questions that we had.
No, it's all right.
All right. So, sir, now I would like to invite our head academics, Professor Dr. Bhavesh Gupta, to give the vote of thanks for today's event, sir.
Well, thank you, Ms. Vedpriya Lahiri, for giving me an opportunity to speak on this auspicious occasion, I must say. And it's really a matter of an honor and privilege for the DME and its entire fraternity. Good afternoon to Honorable DG Sir, Honorable Justice Bhamar Singh Ji, Director Dr. Ravikant Swami, Dean Dr. N.K. Behel, the teachers, participants, and my dear students. It is said that gratitude is the fairest blossom that springs from the soul. So today, I, on behalf of the DME and its entire fraternity, take this opportunity to put all my gratitude in the form of words. It's indeed a profound privilege to have Honorable Dr. Justice Arijit Pasayat Ji, former Judge, Supreme Court of India, in today's webinar. Sir, you have blessed and graced today's webinar by your benign presence, and we are deeply indebted to you. It was obviously a lifetime, cherishable, and outstanding opportunity which can never be forgotten by any one of us. Sir, your simplicity has impressed all of us, and your insightful talk on legal education and legal profession was full of wisdom and information. The topic was really a very complex one, but the manner in which you made it a very simple really deserves a huge round of applause. Sir, the way you shared with the participants the tips pertaining to this said topic will definitely help the budding lawyers, the budding judges in making the optimal use of the mind, power, and the inner potential. Once again, we are thankful to you, sir, for your support and precious time. Thank you so very much, sir. I'm once again, with the core of my heart, we express our sincere thanks to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
My deep sense of appreciation to Ms. Vedpriya Lahiri and Sri Durga TN for having this organized the memorable and wonderful webinar. Thank you, Vedpriya and Sri Durga. Thanks to you. God bless. Thank you.
All right, sir. With this, we come to the conclusion of this event. Thank you so much for joining us. The participants may please stay back to record their attendance, and we end it here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, if we could just share the attendance.
I've already shared it. I'm sharing it once again.
All right, ma'am. Okay.